T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
The Challenger Space Shuttle explosion was a tragic time in America's history. It brought Americans together to work harder towards discovering new advancements that were once obscured by the mindlessness of those yearning to be the first to commit an ordinary teacher to the vast expanse of our galaxy.
The Challenger Space Shuttle lifted off from Cape Canaveral on January 28, 1986 at 11:30 a.m. There was a contest for a teacher to have a chance to go into space with 6 other trained astronauts. The mission was to take an ordinary citizen into space to help popularize the space exploration program. There were over 11,000 applicants for the program, but only one winner. The winner of the contest was a high school social studies teacher named Krista McAuliffe. Her curiosity, bubbly personality, and love for teaching led NASA to believe that McAuliffe would be the perfect fit for the mission.
She had 2 young children at home, and I think the daughter had said the night before, "Mommy, please don't go." It was all over the news for weeks. It was kind of like 9/11. I mean, it was all over the news for days and days and days.
Be straight up, never flew in space. I had 2 opportunities to fly in space. The first one was I was a member of the Challenger crew in 1986. And several months before that mission took off, I was bumped off, one of our crew members decided to fly in November. Well, my colleague, Greg Jarvis, was on the November flight. So he moved to the January flight, and both of us were then on the January mission. Our bosses said, "We know nothing's going to go wrong, but we don't want you both flying." And so I was moved to the February flight, and my colleague, of course, Greg Jarvis, was killed when the Challenger blew up.
And y'all were called, you were called, what were you?
Payload specialist.
Payload specialist, yeah.
And so we both worked at Hughes Aircraft, and they said, "We just don't want you both on the same mission." So other than getting bumped off, I wouldn't be here talking to you.
Krista McAuliffe, Judith Resnick, Dick Scobie, Ronald McNair, Gregory Jarvis, Ellison Onizuka, and Michael J. Smith were on board the Challenger on January 28, 1986, when it exploded 73 seconds after takeoff.
1 minute 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7 nautical miles.
The Challenger did not actually explode. It was engulfed in a cloud of fire when it was 46,000 feet in the atmosphere. The seal in the shuttle's right solid fluid rocket booster was designed to prevent leaks from the fuel tank, but due to frigid temperatures it failed and began to pour hot gases through the shuttle. That caused the fuel tank to collapse and tear apart, which resulted in a flood of liquid hydrogen and oxygen, which created a huge fireball.
The astronauts aboard the space shuttle did not die instantly when the fuel tank collapsed. The shuttle remained momentarily intact. It continued to move upwards. Without as much force to push it upward, the aerodynamics forces pulled the orbiter apart. Some of the pieces from the shuttle reached 65,000 feet before falling into the Atlantic Ocean. Some say the Challenger crew survived the breakup of the shuttle but lost consciousness due to the low cabin pressure. They most likely died due to oxygen deficiency, but the cabin hit the water surface at more than 200 miles per hour. It hit the water 2 minutes and 45 seconds after the shuttle broke apart. Some people say the crew might have remained conscious in the last few final seconds of the fall.
There were 9 other voyages of the Challenger. All these were successful, and all used the same spaceship. The 10th flight was on January 28, 1986. This flight is the most well-known because it not only failed, but also carried a normal citizen in it.
In March of 1986, remains were found of the astronauts and debris from the crew cabin. Most of the spacecraft remained under the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. More than a decade after the disaster, 2 massive pieces of the spacecraft were found at a local beach. The pieces were found 20 miles south of the Kennedy Space Center at Cape Canaveral. Salvage operations recovered 100 pounds of metal from the Challenger space shuttle.
Krista McAuliffe was picked to be a passenger on the shuttle to spread awareness of the space program. However, originally NASA picked Carol Spinney, the voice of Big Bird from Sesame Street, to be the 7th passenger on the Challenger.
At first, we didn't know what happened. We just thought that it was a natural process for the rocket boosters to fall off. And so we didn't really know anything was wrong since I'm not an experienced space person. We didn't know that there was anything wrong until the announcer got really quiet. And then I sensed that what was happening probably isn't what was supposed to happen. And then the announcer, I remember, said something like, we've had some technical difficulties. And at first the kids were like, why is it have all that smoke? They started asking questions. Why was there so much smoke coming out? And I said, I don't know. And then when the announcer, you could hear in the tone of his voice and the way he was talking that it wasn't natural or normal. And so that's when I decided to just turn the TV off, because I didn't want the kids to hear what I thought probably happened.
The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave. The Challenger crew was pulling us into the future, and we'll continue to follow them. I've always had great faith in and respect for our space program, and what happened today does nothing to diminish it. We don't hide our space program. We don't keep secrets and cover things up. We do it all up front and in public. That's the way freedom is, and we wouldn't change it for a minute. We'll continue our quest in space. There will be more shuttle flights and more shuttle crews, and yes, more volunteers, more civilians, more teachers in space. Nothing ends here. Our hopes and our journeys continue.